because we stay here in India and there's a lot of top flight football in Europe, in England that we watch, we are lucky enough to see, that happens on television.
But why is there so much competition for cricket? Why is cricket so popular in India?
Parents started seeing cricket as a career option. But my favorite sport to play when I was younger was actually cricket.
You talk about sports and football in such a passionate way, and it's really nice for me to hear. And I'm sure the viewers also loved hearing you talk and learning about this information. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tête-à-Tête with Inaya. On the show today, I have with me a practicing media and management professional, a published author, and head of broadcast content for Indian Super League, and also my dad, Mr. Gaurav Gala. Football has always been a passion for my dad ever since his formative years growing up in London. Since 2013, he has been exclusively working on football and looking to grow the world's most popular sport in India through content creation across live broadcasts, OTT, and social media. He started off as a broadcast journalist with a specialization in sports, having covered some of the biggest sporting events of our time in India and abroad. Currently, he is the head of content for the Indian Super League, a position he has held since the launch of India's top football league in 2014. In 2022, my dad co-authored his debut book, Awakening the Blue Tigers, India's Quest for Football's Holy Grail. So thank you so much, Papa, for joining me on this episode of Tête-à-Tête with Inaya.
Thank you so much for having me, Inaya, on the show. Obviously, this is a very surreal experience having my own daughter interview me. Throughout my long career in the media, I've interviewed lots of people.
Yeah.
So I'm on the other side this time, and having my own daughter interview me is obviously not only very special for me, but it's like I said, a very surreal experience. But I'm very happy to be here.
Of course. So, Papa, it's no secret that you're a sports buff. I mean, Mama and I have seen you watch all kinds of sports, ranging from football to cricket to athletics, and recently you're watching that Strongest Man in the World show as well. But what's your favorite sport to watch and to play?
Okay. So I'll talk about my favorite sport to watch first.
Okay.
I think it's an open secret. I think whether your mama, you, my friends, I think everybody who knows me knows that I absolutely love watching football.
Yeah.
Whether it's at the stadium, and because of what I do as my profession now and have done for the last 10 years, I have the privilege and I'm lucky enough to watch a lot of football matches at stadiums all over India, and I've obviously seen football matches around in different countries as well. But because we stay here in India and there's a lot of top flight football in Europe, in England that we watch, we are lucky enough to see, that happens on television.
Yeah.
So, staying awake late at night to watch a lot of football matches, it's something that is part and parcel of my life now, as once again you and your mom would know.
Yeah.
If a match, especially of the teams that I follow, one team in particular, Liverpool, I love watching them. They're my favorite team. They're the team that I support. So whether there's a match at 12 midnight, a match at 2 o'clock in the morning, I will stay awake. I'd wear the jersey. I have this ritual that if I wear the jersey, the team's definitely going to win. And you guys obviously make fun of me for doing those things, but I think that just shows how much I love watching football.
That's what any football fan would do.
Absolutely, it's a calling almost.
Yeah.
Football fans and the way they watch and they follow the sport. When it comes to playing, obviously I play football and have done growing up in England, but my favorite sport to play when I was younger was actually cricket. Because I was born in India, and then after my, at the age of 7, 8, I went to England. So before I went there, I used to play a lot of cricket in India.
Yeah.
And once I obviously reached England, I could play cricket probably better than most other kids in my age group. So playing cricket, from a playing standpoint, cricket was the sport that is my favorite.
So you have a long history with cricket then. When you were growing up in London, you played a lot of cricket.
Yes.
So why didn't you pursue cricket further then?
So look, that's a very interesting question. I did pursue cricket.
Yeah.
When I went to England, as I just told you, I was probably better than a lot of kids in my age group at the time, 8-year-old, 9-year-olds.
Yeah.
I could play better than them because in India you play a lot of cricket, gully cricket, park cricket, outside your house with your friends after school, and I used to do that like any other child growing up in the 80s, like I did.
Yeah.
In England, that wasn't the case. When we would play cricket in school, uh, the teacher quickly realized that I was better than all the other kids. So he actually called your grandfather, my father, to school one day and said, "Your son is really good at cricket. You should get him enrolled in a club in the area nearby where you live." So he did that. I joined the local club, Shepherd's Bush Cricket Club in West London, and I started playing.
Yeah.
Then from there, it progressed. I played for the West London zone team. From there, I got spotted further, and I was invited for winter trials at Middlesex County, which
Yeah.
is the county cricket, which is the same as playing state level cricket in India at the age
Nice.
group levels. So I was 10 years old at the time.
Yeah.
I was invited to play for Middlesex County Cricket Club. I did the winter trials. I was selected to the team, and I played for them. And I played for them from under 10 onwards, all the way till under 14, under 15. Now, that was the extent of the cricket I really played, because after that I came to India, and there, obviously, in India the competition is much more rigorous, much more difficult.
Yeah. So that's the reason you stopped?
Yes, you could say that, because obviously, in England, I was a good player. So in England, I could compete at that level. In India, obviously, there were so many kids, back then, even in the mid 90s when I came back to India. There were so many kids who were very good at cricket, who wanted to make cricket a profession. So the competition was much, much tougher here. I'm not ashamed to say I wasn't that good that I could make it as a professional cricketer here in India. So the next best thing for me was to stay connected with sports and to work in sports. And I'm happy to say that that's something that I managed to do and fulfill, and make a career uh, of uh, of working in sports.
But why is there so much competition for cricket? Why is cricket so popular in India? I mean, you're always saying that football is really popular amongst the youngsters, and in my school as well, there are more kids who go for football coaching than those who go for cricket coaching. So then, why is this popularity for cricket more than football?
Okay. So that's a very complex question you've asked, and one that I'm happy to answer. Firstly, I would say football is a generational thing. I
Okay.
think the younger generation is now taking to football because of the amount of football they consume on television, the amount of football they watch. And I think football is also considered cool, right? The jerseys, the boots.
Yeah.
Then you've got players like Ronaldo, Messi, you've got like 50 million, 60 million followers on Instagram. So football is considered cool. And because of that, you will see the younger generation gravitates towards football naturally now. And which is why I think maybe in another 8 to 9 years, 10 years, when these youngsters actually grow up, have a bit of spending power, we'll see football actually catching up much more rapidly, much more quickly when it comes to competition with cricket. Coming to the earlier part of your question, where you said, why is cricket so popular in India?
Yeah.
Uh, in my book with Neil Shah, Awakening the Blue Tigers, there's actually one whole chapter dedicated to cricket and the lessons that other sports like football, kabaddi, and other sports in India can actually learn. Lessons we can learn from cricket. Now, cricket in India wasn't really big in the 50s, 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
It became big gradually, and there were multiple reasons why it became big. I almost like to say that cricket was the right sport at the right time. The timing for cricket in India was just right. In 1983, India won the Cricket World Cup.
Yeah.
right? That was the catalyst that we can do something big on the world stage.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the main reason, right? After winning the World Cup, India then hosted a World Cup.
For
So
cricket.
83 happened in England.
Yeah.
But when India hosted the World Cup, many more Indians actually saw the World Cup because it was happening in India in 1987. So that led to further increase in the popularity. But that wasn't the only thing. There was one more really important event that happened, which happened after 4 more years in 1991,
Okay.
when liberalization happened, when the Indian economy opened up,
Yeah.
right? When that happened, suddenly people realize the economic potential of cricket. Uh, Not a lot of people know this, but the Cricket Board of India, the BCCI, the Board of Control for Cricket in India, was actually bankrupt after hosting the Cricket World Cup in 1987.
Wow.
Um, now we know how rich, obviously, the sport of cricket in India is and how rich the
Yes.
BCCI is. But that wasn't always the case. So in 1987, the BCCI was bankrupt. Another interesting fact is that before liberalization happened, the BCCI actually used to pay money to Doordarshan, pay money to DD, which was the national broadcaster, still is,
show
to actually
cricket.
show cricket matches.
Right.
Right now, the BCCI earns billions of rupees, billions of pounds, dollars, whatever currency you want to use, uh, to sell the rights for cricket to broadcasters around the world.
That's how popular it is
That's
now.
how popular it is now, correct. But back then, before liberalization, BCCI actually used to pay money to Doordarshan to show cricket matches.
Yeah.
But all that changed with liberalization. When the economy opened up, you had external companies, private companies like WorldTel, Mark Mascarenhas. They came in, they bought the rights to Indian cricket.
Yeah.
And they paid money to BCCI. Now,
Okay.
BCCI started making money. And because BCCI started making money, cricket started making money. And cricketers started making money. And because money came into the sport, you could improve facilities, you could improve stadiums, you could improve, cricket almost became something that was cool. Cricket also became something where parents said, yes, if my child can play cricket, they can make a really, really big career for themselves and they can become big, famous, make a lot of money. And as a result of that, what happened is that parents started seeing cricket as a career option for their children. Children started seeing it as an opportunity for themselves to grow and to become big and famous and obviously earn a lot of money. Now, when something like that happens, then you have lots of people, lots of children wanting to become cricketers.
Yeah.
And other sports haven't reached that stage yet, although we're on the right track. But I think there are lots of lessons from cricket that a lot of other sports in India can take and learn. Sports like football, kabaddi, and others as well.
Did football ever have such an opportunity in our history? Like, I've seen that movie Maidan, so I know there's some event happened. So
Yeah, so see, football in the 1950s was very popular. We were really good. At the Asian level, we were one of the best countries in India.
Yeah.
In Asia,
Yeah.
India was one of the best countries. We've done really well during that era. But after that, football hasn't really had the kind of popularity. There are pockets in India.
But why didn't we grow from that when we?
Okay, so see, I think we were a young nation. Uh, in the 50s, we were what? Still only maybe 15, 16 years after our independence. So the priorities for a country like India are very different at that point in time.
Yeah.
Right? The needs of the country are very different. Sports is great, sports is good, but there are obviously many more important things for a country apart from sports. So at that point in time, I think the priorities for the country, for the leadership in the country, were very different. And obviously the penetration of the sport in popular lore, it was very low. Television, radio, obviously the penetration of all of these things are needed for the sport to grow. The 50s was too early. The 60s was also too early, I would say.
Yeah.
Right? Hockey was a really big sport at that time. The Indian hockey team was winning Olympic medal, gold medal after gold medal in the Olympics at that point in time. But look at the state of hockey in the country right now from a popularity standpoint.
Sad.
Which is why I said that cricket was the sport where the timing was perfect.
Yeah.
You started doing well at the global level. You started doing well internationally just at the right time. Just when the
and it could be shown easily to the masses.
It could be shown easily to the masses. You won international events, and because you had liberalization happen and money started coming in. So it was the right sport at the right time, and hence it has become as big as it has.
So now in today's day and age, what steps are being taken to encourage football in India?
Okay, so Inaya, I think there is a lot happening in Indian football right now, and I'm very happy to say that I've been a part of it as well for the last decade or so. The Indian Super League started in 2014, and I think what the Indian Super League has done is it has almost made football a viable career option now. I think a lot of players, if they play ISL for about 10, 12 years, can earn a lot of money. Parents are now, coming to terms with the fact that they can, send their kids to play in the ISL. And if their kids play in the ISL, they can make a viable career for themselves. They can earn money, and then once they finish, there are opportunities either in television, there are opportunities either in coaching, or there are opportunities to obviously invest the money you've earned while playing for those 10, 12 years into other avenues. And I think when parents start realizing that sending their kids to play in a certain sport is a viable career option, I think that's when fortunes of the sport can begin to turn, because there is more participation that happens.
I think that's already happening now.
That's right. There are some friends of mine whose children are absolutely mad about football. They play for their school team, they go to academies to train outside of school, they play football on weekends, they play competitive matches, they go for tournaments. And now these parents are asking, what more can we do to ensure that our children, our kids, can take steps towards becoming professional players. Now, apart from that, that's from a parent's perspective. Other than that, obviously, you need to improve infrastructure for the sport. You need to have more fields where kids can go and play football. You need more academies. You need more training facilities. Now, obviously, there are multiple levels where this has to happen. The first and foremost is the grassroots level, where from say the age of 3 onwards till about 8 or 9, that's what grassroots is, where children are introduced to the sport. That is very important, and I think in this particular area India is doing pretty well. There are lots of academies that are coming up all over the place. There are former players like Baichung Bhutia, who has Baichung Bhutia soccer schools, for example. Which is in those schools are all over the country. And there are others as well. You've got big clubs that are in India, international clubs like Barcelona, Liverpool, Manchester United, who have their own academies, which are pay-to-play academies. So obviously, children have to pay money there to get coaching. But these academies are almost advertised as learn to play the Barcelona way or learn to play the Manchester United way. And once in a while you get legends from these clubs who come and interact with children. So it's all part and parcel of the story. But so at the grassroots level, there is a lot happening. I think the gap that we have between the professional level and the grassroots level is youth development, which probably from the age of 9 onwards takes place. Now, youth development is something where I think India really needs to pull up its socks. It's this in-between level from, say, the age of around 9 till about the age of 17, 18, where we need to ensure that once these kids have been chosen and identified at the grassroots levels that they have potential, they're good, we can then coach them and nurture them further so that they become professional, so that they become good. And I think this middle level is something that's currently missing in the country. And this is where we need to put a lot of attention, give a lot of attention to this particular area. And I think once that happens, and it's going to take time, it's not going to happen overnight, then we can potentially look to see some changes happening. This has to be done by clubs. This has to be done by the federation, which is the All India Football Federation. This has to be done by state federations, which are like the Delhi Football Association or Mumbai or Maharashtra or so on and so forth. But I think a collective effort needs to be made to ensure that this happens across all levels of the sport. And I think the role of the government is equally important as well. Yes.
Yeah. And Baba, we just finished with the Paris Olympics. Now you were there. You also helped with India House, that was showcasing everything India was doing at the Olympics. So, and India won 6 medals at the Paris Olympics. That's still a formidable achievement, but that's still less than what our neighboring country China did. They secured so many medals, and we also had the Paralympics, and our athletes there did so well. We got so many medals, and it's really commendable how many medals they got and how well they performed there. But why don't we have such a good performance in the main Olympics? Like, what more needs to be done?
So again, a very interesting question. A lot of work needs to be done. I think infrastructure development is definitely one of them. Providing facilities for children to play and participate. I'm a big supporter of children playing sports. I think until and unless you actually go out there and start playing, you will never really feel the love for that sport. I fell in love with sports because when I went to England, I played a lot of sports. It was part of the culture in England, in London, to play sports. I would go to school every day. We'd have a physical education session every day of the week. So you'd end up playing some sport or the other every day of the week.
That's not there in India.
That's not there in India, correct. So, and then you get to see a lot of sports on television in a country like England. When I was young, I used to see a lot of sports on TV. So that influences you as well. And I think when it comes to the Olympic disciplines, I think we need to almost encourage our school curriculums to ensure that kids are playing all of these different disciplines. And then we need to obviously, after encouraging that participation, so that kids actually play, if they realize that they have an interest in something or they're good at something, they'd want to sort of get better. Then their parents would look at ways of finding how can we ensure our kids get better at this. How can they try and make a career out of this? So it's almost like you need different stakeholders, from the kids themselves, the parents, the government, schools. Everybody has to kind of come together
and
play their part. Then you obviously have to ensure that the infrastructure is there. The infrastructure again has to be at different levels. The infrastructure has to be there at the neighborhood level first. Then the infrastructure has to be there at the state level. Then the infrastructure has to be there almost at a national level. State level, national level can be combined together. The upkeep of these facilities, the management of these facilities, the use of these facilities, all has to be regulated and looked into. Everything needs to be done in a professional manner. So I think somewhere down the line, what we have in India right now when it comes to Olympic sports is we've got certain corporates who have these facilities, who take on certain athletes and work with them, and then these athletes go out and perform. What we need is that level of encouragement, that level of support for every single athlete who makes it to a certain level, who participates at, say, the state level or the national level. Each and every athlete, irrespective of which corporate you're associated with or which corporate's Olympic program you're part of, irrespective of that, you need to be provided that level of support. I think once that happens, and that happens with countries like China and other developed nations in Europe and the US. But here in India, I don't think that's the case. If you're not a JSW athlete, if you're not Reliance Foundation athlete, then that level of support is something you might not get. So I think the aim has to be to provide that level of support for each and every athlete.
And I also feel mindsets need to change. Our
Okay.
priorities don't need to change, but they should evolve. As in, China is also a very studious country, but they're also really good at sports. India is really studious, but we're only focusing on studies. Most kids in class 11th, they're just focusing on JEE or other competitive exams. And those who want to do football or other sports, there are very few of those kids who have the opportunity to do that. And you've also been at a school, you've delivered a lecture on football there as well. And I remember you told me that the younger kids were more interested in what you had to say
Yeah.
than the older kids, because they were more invested in studies, they had less to add to your conversation. So I feel the mindset there needs to evolve as well.
The mindset needs to evolve, and I think our school curriculum has to evolve. I think the education we're imparting and the importance that we're giving to sports has to change.
Yeah.
And I think the schools and teachers play a very important role in that. I gave you my own example. When I was young, my school teacher called my father to school and said, he's good at sports. Here are 3 clubs in the near the area you live in. Go and enroll him in these clubs because he's really good and he can benefit from this.
Yeah.
Will a teacher like that do that something here in India? I don't know. So maybe I think we need to learn the importance of sport, and I think it needs to be pushed in the right manner by the right people.
So, Baba, we've had a very enriching conversation so far. Of course, you know about the problems we face in this country with regards to not just football, but all sports in general, and you know the ground reality of these sports, and you have many ideas in your mind about how we can change this. So, if you were made the sports minister for a day, what is the first thing that you would do?
Wow. Sports minister for the day.
Yeah.
Okay. So, firstly, lots of very interesting questions. But if I was made the sports minister for a day, I think the first thing I would do is I would call a meeting with as many school boards as I possibly can in all the different states. I would call the heads of the school boards, and I would impress upon them that giving due importance to sports at the school level, and I'm talking primary school here, and middle school, and then senior school, all different levels of school, and give them lots of importance. Give sports lots of importance. How can we, and you're probably sick of hearing this by now, but how can we encourage children to just play?
Yeah.
Participate? How can we encourage children to enjoy sports? That's the first level of intervention I would look to push through. If I'm successful in doing that, then I think everything else follows and flows on from that. But the first and most important thing is our school system, because that's where the most number of children can be touched, can be impacted, right? And that is why I would impress upon all of the people who are part of our education system, who are decision makers, to ensure that sports is given due importance in the curriculum.
Right. That's a good answer. And that was, of course, a great interview. Thank you so much, Papa, for joining me on this episode of Tête-à-Tête with Inaya. I really loved having you here. I mean, you talk about sports and football in such a passionate way, and it's really nice for me to hear. And I'm sure the viewers also loved hearing you talk and learning about this information.
No, and like I said, it's been a very surreal experience for me to be on a show being interviewed by my daughter. So I enjoyed every moment of this. So thank you so much.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Tête-à-Tête with Inaya. Thank you so much, viewers, for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.